morning. On behalf of Mrs. Busby and the old geezer, welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. This morning we have personalities and perspectives. But we always try to start, gentlemen, down through the years, we've always tried to start with a kudo for some organization or individual. We're going to go out of the community. We're going to go over 60 miles east to Champaign and issue a big kudo to the athletic department for having the cojones to drop this young man from their basketball program for his peccadillos over there with his lady friend and beating her up and so forth. The big question is, what are we going to do? He's an athlete. Well, they did the right thing. They dropped him out of the program. So that takes a little courage. Not always demonstrated on colleges, campuses the country over.
Or in professional ranks.
Or in professional ranks, yes, right. So, these athletes, they get this complex on big stuff. And they expect a lot. And, we have a list, Mrs. Busby, we have a list of transgressions by people who are famous. Let's review that just a minute.
And please pay close attention because there will be a test. Okay?
Geoff Ladd, pay strict attention.
This is NBA, NFL, okay? Okay, now even if you aren't a sports fan, it's pretty interesting, okay? 36 of their members, whichever organization it is, have been accused of spousal abuse.
Shocking.
7 have been arrested for fraud.
Shocking.
19 have been accused of writing bad checks.
Shocking.
117 have directly or indirectly bankrupted at least 2 businesses. 3 have done time for assault. 71, I repeat, 71 cannot get a credit card due to bad credit. Now, you as a banker should be a person. 14 have been arrested on drug-related charges.
Shocking.
8 have been arrested for shoplifting. 21 currently are defendants in lawsuits, and 84 have been arrested for drunk driving in the last year. Now, can you guess which organization this is? Is it the NBA or the NFL? And everybody gets to vote, including you, James. What do you say, boys?
Both.
Both?
Well,
I would say NFL.
Yeah, okay.
Geoff?
I'll go out there for NBA.
Okay. Well, here's the answer. Neither. It's the 535 members of the U.S. Congress.
Oh my God.
Now this lustrous group is the same group of idiots that crank out hundreds of new laws each year designed to keep the rest of us in line.
And who are exempt from their own laws that they pass.
Yeah, this is most certainly true.
You didn't give us option C in your...
I know, that's why it was a tough test. You can't get the answers to everything just right off the top.
So that took care of the politics part of the program this morning.
Yes. And pretty well, I dare say.
Yeah, it is. We all get disgusted when we see some of these so-called big-time athletes behave the way they do. They become entitled. And it's all about the dollar sign, and it's a sad thing. But,
well, you talk about narcissism in professional and college-level sports. Well, I think it reigns supreme in the Congress and the legislature as well.
Oh, we've seen time after time. We have one of our former congressional representatives who hasn't appeared before the bar yet, but I'm sure he will. A fellow comes from Central Illinois here. A lot of narcissism there. A lot of, common sense kind of goes out the window for some folks. Happily, we've got a lot of really good people out there, but some folks. Anyway, the University of Illinois did a good thing in dropping that young man. They stepped to the plate and did the correct thing. So let's get down to the business of the day here. We tend to talk about this all morning, but we wouldn't gain anything anyway except get my blood pressure up. So, Judith Kay, why don't you introduce our guest this morning?
Well, we have a plethora.
Plethora.
Yes.
Not only that, we have several.
Yes. And their brothers. Dan Tackett, I think I'll reference you as
Fiddler.
the local historian.
How about Fiddler?
Fiddler. We'll go with Fiddler. Okay. Bob Wilmert, Geoff Ladd, and we're going to be talking about Route 66, a landmark that we along the corridor here are kind of dependent upon from our tourism standpoint. And we were talking about the mill. Now, they've been working on that for a bit. The mill is...
A long time.
Yes. The mill is really a landmark. I can remember going there when we first moved here.
Right.
And my kids thought it was just the berries.
Did you hitch your horse out there?
Huh?
When you went there, did you hitch your horse?
Did I hit my horse?
Hitch your horse out there.
Hitch my horse? I never did hit my horse. I never had a horse. But anyway, the mill is quite the place, and you've undertaken the job, considerable job. Bob tells me he was painting yesterday. I've been painting too. My dad always said I was a 3-quart painter. A quart to spill, a quart to wear, and a quart for the job. And it's true. My hair is full of brown stain from the deck, and the kids told me it was in my ear pretty thick. I don't know how I got it there. But if you want to hire me to paint with you, I'm really good. If you got a lot of paint, though, because remember, I need 3 quarts.
Right.
Okay. So, let's talk about saving the mill and the Route 66 Heritage Foundation of Logan County, of which Bob Wilmert is the president and Geoff Ladd is the secretary and driver. And,
Yes.
and Danny Tackett is fiddler.
That's Fiddler, right.
He is. And let's talk about how it came to pass that you decided to try to save this. Can you tell us about that, please?
The mill was originally built and opened as a restaurant in 1929. In 1945, Huffman's purchased the mill and closed it as a restaurant in 1996. Due to the efforts of Geoff Ladd several years ago, working with the city council, the mill was saved from the wrecking ball. As it was mentioned, will be opened as a Route 66 museum in April of 2017.
Now, as far as the museum goes, you've got a collection started, haven't you, of things that you're going to be displaying in there?
Right.
And what sorts of things, and where did you get them? Geoff?
Live radio here.
You're what?
Bob and I will share this for live radio. I brought in one of the items for the museum right here.
Oh!
But we do have, many of you remember, of course, Ernie Edwards.
Yes.
And now his wife has passed away too, Fran, so they're both no
Lovely
longer with
lady.
us. Ernie and I were the original people that decided, in fact, Ernie insisted that I save the mill. So, and he was on our original foundation board. So, what's left after the mill burned down is going to be in the mill, and we also have a number of other artifacts from, the pig hip. That's the name of it.
The Ernie Edwards connection.
That's the Edwards connection. Thank you, Bob. We have remnants now. We have the Crossroads sign. We saved that when the motel came down. Remnants from Halley's, and of course remnants from even the tropics. But this is the classic remnant right here.
It's a picnic basket, for you who don't have visual accommodations on your radio.
Exactly. And you'll see it on YouTube. So, you may have read we applied for a grant from the National Park Service. We don't know yet if we're going to get the grant. We're very optimistic, as we were when we first wrote it. The city of Lincoln has agreed to match that with $12,000 out of the hotel tax, and it's important for your listeners to know that hotel tax is generated, of course, from the hotel stays, so it's not a burden on the local taxpayer, and I'm very pleased about that. Part of that grant was the story of how even going to the bathroom at the mill was an experience. Okay?
It's true.
Now, you may remember this, Judy.
I
So,
do.
if you went to the bathroom and you saw this unassuming basket and you opened it up, I'll demonstrate for you what happened. You ready for this?
As long
Now,
as
don't-
it's not a bird, I'm up for it.
don't have a heart attack. We better back this mic away, Jim. So, be ready, everyone. Here we go.
Oh man, I knew it was going to be a bird.
So we actually put this on YouTube and used it as part of our grant. It's just how goofy the mill was and how significant it was. And you know, Ernie Edwards always said it's the last real remnant of '66 that's on the road in Lincoln. He may or may not be right about that, but certainly one of the most significant ones. So Bob's right. He's been working like crazy. We all have, and we hope to be open by April of next year.
Well, Fiddler, you got a lot about the Logan County, and do that pretty doggone well, I might add.
Thank you.
You can pay me afterwards. We'll have
Not a problem.
See,
But
I'm converting him.
Seriously, as you put together your weekly columns, which people look forward to if they get the paper on the porch, another story.
Indeed.
Have you given thought to doing or perhaps you haven't? I've missed it too, Dan. An article on Route 66 and its mystique and.
I haven't done that article per se. I think I was on vacation last summer, and I received a telephone call from the Courier office, where I no longer work, by the way, asking me to call Bob Wilmert at the time. And Bob was seeking my help in my column to get some funding going for the mill restoration and everything. And I did that. That's kind of been the extent of my actual mill focus. Although I think in several columns I've said Lincoln is really missing the boat by not jumping on, number one, the mill, and any other Route 66 attractions we have. I mean, we're spending thousands of dollars of tax money in a branding game when we have one. Route 66/Abe Lincoln. That's our
I always
branding.
thought that was, we're going out there looking for branding, and as you suggest, we're spending kind of big time money.
Exactly.
And it's self-evident what our branding is.
Right.
Because Route 66 Mystique, and I've said that time and time again on the air and in various groups, it's an amazing thing to see and to realize. And the reason I'm perhaps more interested is working at the Lincoln College Heritage Museum.
Sure.
We see people, and we ask them how they happen to come in, and well, they're on a Route 66 tour. And when you see the registers, the countries from which these people come.
It's amazing.
50% of the, I talked to Ron Keller, who's the former Lincoln College Museum
Director.
Curator, yeah.
And he said 50% of the people that come to his college are on a Route 66 tour.
Tell them about the Norway visitors yesterday,
Wait,
Bob.
Yesterday I had 30 motorcycle riders come to the mill and take pictures of the outside of the mill, and from Norway. And it's unbelievable.
You'd have thought they'd have come by boat.
They ride those
Being from
motorcycles
Norway.
all across? Did they come the Great Circle route?
They flew to Chicago and then
took
got
the
their-
whole story out.
They got their motorcycles. There were all Harley Davidson motorcycles.
Sure, yeah.
And we had a Sweden flag in the car, the head car. Showed.
Not a Swedish flag.
Norwegian.
Swedish flag.
With a bunch of Norwegians? Why would they be
No, it
carrying?
was Norwegian flag.
Yeah, might as well, since
Yeah.
you're Norwegian.
Get your
Right.
facts straight. You're on the air.
I will relate a story that I think I did include in one of my columns. A good friend of mine in Lincoln last summer flew to L.A. to meet up with an older friend of his who has this 1937 Ford hot rod that he'd restored and put a big modern engine in it. And this fellow's dream was to drive 66 from L.A. all the way to Chicago. So my friend flew out to help him do the driving. They get back and my friend says, every place we stopped, it was a Route 66 attraction. And he says, there are tons of them out there. They saw many, many foreign tourists at every one of those stops.
Oh.
And my friend says, gosh, Lincoln is really missing the boat here. And I says, yeah,
Yes.
let's get the mill going.
Well, for example, Pontiac averages 20,000. I visited the Route 66 museum in Pontiac
Yes.
last year, and they average 20,000 visitors a year. Think of what that will do for motels, restaurants, gas stations, and shopping for Lincoln.
Oh, big economy, yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of economy, there used to be a place called Paul's Log Cabin Inn, which was on the north side of Old 66,
Yes.
on the north side of Pontiac.
I remember that.
One day, you're
I
just a
do,
kid.
too.
You remember that. You kids do. Anyway, one day I decided early in the morning I had to go to Chicago to the Merchandise Mart, and I jumped in the car and drove to Chicago. And I stopped for a cup of coffee at the Paul's Log Cabin Inn there in Pontiac, and I reached into my pocket and paid for the coffee, and I didn't have anything. I didn't have. So I asked for the manager real quickly, and I told him, in those days you could write counter checks. That's
Yes.
where you filled in the name of the bank and then
Right.
so forth. Anyway, he said, you know anybody here? And I said, yeah, I know Judge Edwards. And he said, you know Hubert Edwards? I said, yeah, he's a friend of mine. He was a circuit judge at that time. And I know Bill Wolf. He sells Pontiac. He sells Chevrolets. And he says, that's good enough for me. Go ahead and write what you want. I said, could I make this for $20? He said, go ahead. I did. I was going to Chicago without a nickel.
Oh, dear.
I was just going to go up and come back. You know,
Another mistake.
You know, we're talking about Pontiac. Let's just go a couple miles up the road.
Exactly.
Look at what Atlanta has done with
Yeah.
66.
With that Paul Bunyan-ish guy.
And the Palms Grill.
Oh,
Cafe.
gosh, yes. Yeah, and their little museum, which is very
say
nice.
that's a remarkable museum for such a small community.
Yeah.
That's a remarkable
Right.
museum.
Kudos to Bill Thomas.
Oh yes,
Oh, amen.
absolutely,
Amen.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to Beautification Day one day, and this lady.
She goes every week, folks.
I do. I have to. And the lady was standing there, and she said, "Could you move your car just a tad that way?" I said, "Sure." So I did, and she was taking pictures on that little park that Busby Turner little parkway by.
On Simon Street, across from the dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so she was taking pictures, and she said, "Now, where is this watermelon?" And I said, "Right there," because it was right across the street. So I was telling her some of the things that she could see here, and she was not from here, of course, because
Sure.
a prophet is without honor in his own country, and so is a beautiful sight to see without honor amongst its own people.
Right.
She was on the 66 route, and she was looking for the things to see. And taking pictures of that little park, and then she went there. I told her how to get to Lincoln College, and she was real excited about the whole thing. And you're right, every single one of you 5 boys are right as rain. We should be capitalizing on that.
Exactly. And, you know, I picked up some Route 66 tourism brochures, and there really isn't much said about all the things that can be seen in Lincoln, Illinois.
No. Well,
I
we
mean,
got
there needs to
in.
be some oversight on that, I think.
You know, this fellow Paul Coddington who started this, I knew him. They were friends of contemporaries of my parents, and his father was a very unusual old gentleman. He lived in the big house on Logan Street where Natalie Marquez now resides with corner Tremont and Logan. And what I remember about that old gentleman is he wore a swallowtail coat in the 1930s. A swallowtail coat. I was just a little.
Just for everyday dress?
Well, I'd see him on that porch in a swallowtail coat, and had a goatee, a Kentucky Fried Chicken beard. I think I'm the only one left who remembers that.
Now, let me ask you about the mill. Is this involving plumbing and electrical work as well as the carpentry contract?
Joe Fitzpatrick is doing the electrical work.
So it required
volunteer
from inside out. Well,
yeah.
He's a nice man.
Yes, real good guy. And I might mention $70,000 has been raised for remodeling. Last year, $6,000 from local businesses was raised for remodeling the mill. And
all because of him. He did that.
Well, bless his heart.
He went out there and worked the crafts.
That's a big job to raise funds.
Kudos
Well,
to
there's an
Bob.
old expression: nothing happens till somebody makes it happen.
yeah.
Right.
And so there's a good example of that.
Many volunteers have worked many hours, namely Leroy Rantham, Richard Berger, Ray Saul, Joe Fitzpatrick, Mike Futton, Mike Fack, who is now deceased, and John Sutton, and myself, and the Salt Creek Abatement Motorcycle Club for their work behind the bill. Johnny Jacks, I don't know if you remember the wagon wheels. He refinished the wagon wheel lights, and he refinished them, and they're to be hung in the mill.
Good.
We got 3 places for them.
Are you going to try to make it look like it did when I moved here 50 years ago?
Yes. Yes.
Good.
Well,
Is the leg going to hang out of the ceiling?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It will.
We found the boot or leg, whatever it
You
was
found a
called.
leg.
Yeah. we found it, and as I mentioned, we've had people from China, Norway, Sweden, Germany, London. I have stopped by the mill as it is on the Route 66 points of interest. Funds are still needed for completion of the inside of the mill, and will be recognized on a plaque inside the mill. The balance for completion is approximately $66,000. The mill has already spent $22,000, which was a loan from Regions Bank for demolition costs for the kitchen and dance hall.
Well, speaking of such mundane matters as money, we operate here in what's known as the capitalistic system, and we have to have sponsors. And so at this point in time, we're going to take a quick station break and recognize our sponsors. And right back live in the studios here in WLCN 96.3 on your FM dial. As you already know, since you had that radio plugged right in there, 96.3. Our guest this morning, we're discussing the historic mill on Washington Street. Is that the name of that street?
It's on the original Route 66 that came through Lincoln.
Yeah, I think it's
between
Washington.
1930 and 1940.
Right next to that wonderful Lincoln Developmental Center, which that's their idol. Our guest this morning are Dan Fiddler Tackett, who does a great job of writing about what's going on in Logan County. Bob Wilmert, who's been very, very vitally instrumental in working out there and trying to get the mill restored. And the historian and worker in the group, Mr. Geoff Ladd. We appreciate your presence this morning, gentlemen. Geoff, you were going to give us a little rundown on some facts.
Well, yes. My boss is Bill Kelly from the Illinois Route 66 Scenic Byway, and we have a lot of great anecdotal evidence that people are coming down the road. In Illinois, we estimate about 1.7 million international travelers every year are taking Route 66. And so Bob mentioned 20,000 of them stopped in Pontiac. Those are probably the 20,000 that they were able to track that actually signed in. I would say those numbers are a lot higher. And when they're in your town, if you can get them to stop in your town, and that's why the mill opening as a museum is so critical, it gives them more time in town, they're going to spend $100 to $135 a day while they're here, particularly if they stay overnight. But even if you don't get them on an overnight, they're going to spend a significant chunk of money. Dan brought up the Palms Grill. After that opened, Atlanta saw a 43% increase in their sales tax revenue that they collected.
That's phenomenal.
So it doesn't have to be heads in beds. We hear that concept a lot. It's somewhat antiquated by the fact that tourism is focusing on the day trips now and the money that's generated at restaurants, gas stations, tourist attractions, and the like. So the mill is extremely important. Bob talked about all these people visiting the mill before we even have it open, before you can even let anyone in there. But it's been on the radar screen for 10 years, thanks in part to Dan Tackett here. And so, yeah, it is time. It's time to get it open. Route 66 is the #2 tourism draw in the state of Illinois. It's now surpassed Abraham Lincoln. It's only the only thing ahead of it is the city of Chicago. So it's even more important now than Abraham Lincoln from a pure tourism standpoint. I don't want to offend any historians here, but we like to say they're coming to find Lincoln by traveling on Route 66. So that's the combination that we can really offer here in the state. And people come back. 70% of all people on Route 66 will be doing it for the second or third time. The more you can give them each time, the more they're going to come to your community, and they are coming to Lincoln Heritage Museum, and what a great 1-2 combination that's going to be. Bill volunteers out there to have both these museums open. So I'm excited from the Illinois Route 66 Scenic Byway standpoint. It's $135 million economic impact every year, 1.7 million international travelers, and that doesn't even count people traveling from the United States. It's very significant.
I wonder if how much of an impact, it certainly has a major impact, I'm certain, the song that Bobby Troop wrote, Get Your Kicks on Route 66.
Yeah.
I suspect...
When I was in China, I asked our guide back in 2010, I was in China, my wife and I traveled to China, and I asked our guide, who was about 39 years old, I said, you ever heard of Route 66? He says, oh yeah, get your kicks on Route 66.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you three considered broaching this subject with the committee now? Its title eludes me right now. Who's looking into the branding and suggesting what you said about the Route 66/Lincoln? Because we already have that brand. Why not?
I believe the committee you're referring to is the Lincoln City Council.
Oh, I've heard of them.
Yes. And, I've subtly suggested on more than one occasion in my column that, hey, what are you paying good money to get a brand for? You already have Abe Lincoln in your logo and your letterheads and everything. And, gee, Route 66 still runs through town. So why do we need a brand?
If Orville was still with us, he'd be pushing that.
Yes. Along the same lines, I can get pretty critical about the city council, but
I noted that once in a while.
I think they all deserve a big pat on the back, a lot of kudos for deciding amongst themselves that the city would pledge the $12,000 for this matching grant that Geoff was just talking about, rather than handing that money over to the Tourism Bureau, which there's another group that has to vote on this. And then, I don't know the structure down there, but I would assume that the Logan County Alliance, the parent organization, would also have to sign off on this. So the city council definitely did the right thing by saying, hey, we're taking this $12,000 out, we're committing it to the mill.
Well, speaking of such mundane matters as money, and it always comes down to that, doesn't it?
It does.
We presume that the completion of this is totally dependent upon how quickly you can get more money in to wind this project up. What are your thoughts about down the road as far as getting ready for having, quote, or grand opening?
We intend to have a grand opening next April of 2017. Yeah.
It's 2017.
Yeah.
April. Well, I'll try to be here.
Now, is that contingent on this grant coming through?
Right. I mean, the big thing is, we're optimistic. We've got this grant we're working on with National Park Service, and we have the city's commitment, which I think carries a lot of weight, in terms of the grant process. But it's competitive. We don't know the outcome yet. If we get that grant, we've got our bathroom. And after that, we just need a few $1,000s more to finish the interior, and we're very confident we can get that done this year as well. So technically, I think we'll be done and ready to open in November, but by then the tourism season's over.
Right.
So now we're looking at a big grand opening, and you're all invited in April of 2017.
2017. I'll mark that on my
We'll
calendar.
have to find some schnitzels somewhere. Unfortunately, Hallie's closed, so we'll have to get them from the Legion or something.
Well, perhaps we ought to recognize some those who have kicked in so far in this cause. We'll just take the list as it is in front of me. Mrs. Busby handed it to me. Thank you, Judith K. The Danner Trust Fund. Larry Van Bibber. There's an individual who kind of quietly does a lot of things in this community. National Park Service Route 66 Corridor, Logan County Board, Abraham Lincoln Tourism Bureau, the Woods Foundation, another organization that just does worlds of good in this community. Rail Splitter Antique Auto Club, the Salt Creek Abate Motorcycle Club, D&D Sewer, private individuals there, Logan County, Lincoln Printers and Sign Design, Eaton Corporation. They're certainly a big presence in our community here.
They furnished the fuse panel for all the electrical panel.
Is that right? Yeah.
They're good at making those,
Right.
Casey's General Store, RP Lumber, Fitzpatrick Electric, he steps in there. Alexander Lumber Company, Worth Insurance and Real Estate, Walmart's of Lincoln, and Family Custom Cleaners and Tanning, and the U-Haul service that they offer. Harris Highland Insurance Agency, and the media. Those are some individuals who are on record as having made contributions.
There's a whole nother panel of them, too, on the other side.
Well, we run out of time.
We want to thank them all.
We're limited,
Oh, my goodness, yes. Well, we just, we'll slide in. Route 66 Association, Illinois Route 66 Byway, Growl, another very big important guy here in our community, does a lot of things. Growl Incorporated, Sherwin-Williams, Lincoln Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ace Hardware, Lincoln Rotary Club, John Weiss Preservation Committee, Rail Splitter Antique Auto Club, Landmarks of Illinois, Contractors Ready Mix, Region Bank, the Eagles Lodge, the Lincoln Elks, the Lincoln Emblem Club, Sorrento's Pizza, the Blue Dog, Lincoln College, and Spirits of Bloomington, whatever that is, I'm not sure. Route 66 Garage Sale, City of Lincoln, and a lot of other volunteers.
So you all got to join in with all these people. It's time to donate, right?
Go right ahead. Bob, you were about to comment. I think you got some notes up to your ear.
I'm going to personally contact several professional athletes who were all born in Lincoln or played ball in Lincoln, including one astronaut. We intend to have a locked display case with some of their memorabilia from their professional careers. Emil Verben, you remember Emil Verben, Kevin Seitzer, who played professional baseball, Norman and Brian Cook, who played professional basketball, and Tony Semple from the Detroit Lions. And Scott Altman was born in Lincoln. His dad, Fred, now lives in Pekin, and I've contacted him for different information for paraphernalia, memorabilia, for
Scott
this
was kind enough to give us some time on the air here a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
As they say, nothing gets done, somebody makes it happen. So Bob is out there scratching the hustings for a buck here and a buck there, or maybe $50. So if anybody's constrained to think about this in a positive way, you can contact Bob Wilmert. He's pretty easy to get a hold of. I found him. And you can find him in the 19th hole of the golf course, if nowhere else. Go ahead, Geoff.
Yeah, just get a hold of us, savethemill.org. And if you want to make a donation or a memorial or become a member, those are all tax deductible. We're a 501c3 charitable organization, so you can write this off on your taxes. But this is the year to make your donation. Let's get this $4,000 we need, and hopefully this grant. It's the 90th anniversary of Route 66. It's our 10th anniversary working on this project. Let's get it done for the 90th anniversary. And don't forget, coming up second weekend of June is the big garage sales in Lincoln. Plug for them. So
Yes.
You had Car Enthusiast annually come along in the fall of the year. That's worked out nicely for you?
yeah, and they'll be back for their 10th anniversary the second Saturday in October. We're also working with A-Bait Motorcycle Club for a big event with them this year as well. So we're excited about that.
They do a lot of good.
They do a lot of good.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We kind of seem to tar whole wide groups of people with the same brush. And that's just, they aren't all Marlon Brando, you know. That abate does good work.
Well, and you know, when you look at the international 66 travelers, people thought they were finding 66 because of the old Route 66 show or some other things. They found out about Route 66 because of the movie Easy Rider. So there's a motorcycle connection that goes way, way back with Route 66.
See, I didn't know that.
So that's how they're coming over here. That's why they bring their bikes over here.
Well,
we have people
I've
that
seen-
that ship their cars over here just so they can drive.
I've seen bicyclers, and they're going to, by golly, do Route 66. I tell you, that's quite a bit to bite off.
It is, yeah, and it's exciting, and we're the county of wind farms, and we have this windmill restaurant to go along with it. I mean, it's a 1-2 punch.
That's the original windmill of Logan County, isn't it?
You betcha.
Yes.
What major problem do you gentlemen foresee as you bring this to? Is there any big major, from a construction standpoint or a refurbishing standpoint? Are you pretty well set as far as the basic mill is concerned?
We are. Yeah.
The outside is, other than touch-up painting, is finished. And John Sutton and Leroy Radcliffe and myself just put in a new front door yesterday.
I'm glad John Sutton was involved in that. We know it was done right.
Yeah, you bet.
Go ahead, Fiddler.
Well, you started the program with kudos, and I'd like to close out my little portion of the program here by giving tons of kudos to these two guys beside me here. Obviously, this is a labor of love for these folks, and you've really proven yourselves as leaders to the community in this effort, and I think the community stands to benefit a lot from your efforts, and I personally want to thank you for that.
Oh, that's
Bless your
appreciated.
heart.
Thank you very much, Dan. The mill per se, the actual windmill, will that be stationary or will it be in an operative manner?
Well,
that should be a very difficult thing to do, I would imagine.
The motor's still there. We can make it operational, and in fact,
for an extra $1,000.
Perhaps when we get more and more of these wind farms coming to town, maybe one of them can come over and actually hook us into the electrical grid. We'd love to do that. We'll generate our own power off the thing. That's even conceivably possible.
Is it?
Yes. So
that's
there
a thought
you go.
I hadn't heard of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they could do something for the community that way. They'd be so grateful to be involved.
But at least it would pay our own power bill.
Bob, do you have any comments that you'd like as we close this program this morning?
No, none other than continue to help us out financially. As Geoff mentioned, we would like to raise $4,000 for the completion of the mill. We need to finish the wiring, light fixtures, ceiling, tile, and a floor in the bar room area.
And what if somebody wants to join you as a volunteer? I bet you'd accept them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Business membership is $25 a year or $40 for 2 years. Individual membership is $15 a year or $25 for 2 years.
You can call us at 671-3790 and we'll put you to work.
Okay.
It's okay, Jim, if you want to deduct $15 for Judy and I. It's okay. Well, Bob Wilmert, Geoff Ladd, and Danny Tackett have been with us this morning. We're talking about this historical place out there on just off of 5th Street next to Postville Park, down the road a block or two from Postville Park, and a historic place if I ever knew one. We always try to close the program with some remark that I've dug up from somewhere that's analogous to the subject matter of the day. And this is a bit philosophical, but I think it rings pretty well true. And it simply says, the thing about tourism is that the reality of a place is quite different than the mythology of it. Something to be said for that. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.